guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video called I Bought a House in Sweden and Everything Went Wrong. Well, this sounds scary. Is it buyer's remorse? I think it would be quite a bit more scary, the scariest experience ever to just buy a house in a foreign country and going, what on earth did I just say? But I am cautious. I am a little scared. But let's check it out and comment, like, and subscribe. How wrong could it be? You're the proud owner of this beautiful house in Sweden. It's beautiful. Oh my god, this is gorgeous. What place is this?
Okay, so where do I start? Basically, everything went wrong. So let's start with buying the house. I came here in January 2023 to look at this house, and I didn't go through the regular bidding process that you go through here in Sweden to buy the house. I actually found this house on a German platform called eBay Kleinanzeigen, and it was posted by somebody that is basically a self-proclaimed real estate agent. And with me not having any experience with buying a house in Sweden, let's just say things didn't go according to protocol. First of all, things weren't really discussed truthfully. And let's start with the roof, actually. So I was told the roof is in good condition. I couldn't inspect it properly because there was snow here in January, obviously. And the damage was so severe that I had to replace the entire roof. But it wasn't only that, there were a couple other things. For instance, the entire basement was painted, and I specifically asked about mold. And I was told there was no mold, but turned out later, after talking to the neighbors, after I got to know them, turned out there was black mold in there.
Oh my god, black mold.
It was fixed properly. It didn't come back yet, so I don't know.
Isn't black mold one of the more dangerous types of mold? I don't know. This would have heard.
Why this was not discussed earlier. And I don't want to ramble about this for too much because I think I would have bought the house regardless. Maybe try to negotiate a little more. So that meant the entire budget that I had planned to renovate the entire house went only into the roof. So the budget that I had set for myself was roughly 30,000 euros. And I thought that would involve like basic renovation, like, you know, putting on new wallpapers. Everything basically looked kind of okay when I looked at the house. Of course, a new bathroom was planned, so I would have stretched the budget a little bit maybe, but that was kind of the idea that I had in mind. Well, and what started as a normal renovation turned out in completely overhauling basically the entire house. To my knowledge, the house was sitting empty for roughly 3 years. I'm not entirely sure about that. So mice and whatnot found their way into the home and made themselves comfortable. So one of the first things we did was rip out the entire floor in the second floor.
If you have mice and you have to get rid of the entire thing? What? I thought you was, I don't know, call an exterminator and that's it.
And to no surprise, we have found a bunch of nests and the smell was pretty bad. Another big mistake I made was rip out everything at once. I think actually one of the viewers pointed that out in a comment. Yeah, that meant I couldn't use any of the rooms effectively anymore. Oh
yeah, of course, I get what they mean. Yeah, of course you want to live there. You can't just do everything at once because you have to live there. So I can't do anything. Well, I have to do everything room by room.
I was basically living on a construction zone. But overall, basically the costs have quadrupled at this point. And what are the options? I could sell the house and get back to Germany, or stay and commit.
Oh my god.
So that's what I did.
What an awful situation.
Okay, so why did I stop posting videos? First of all, I want to thank you for all the comments because that inspired me to continue on this channel. But after a while, I just realized that this is mentally too challenging for me. And you will know why in a second, because it actually got much worse. So after being here for a couple of weeks, a friend of mine from Germany came over to help me. He was actually also here when we looked at the house in January. And then while we were working together and we lived together also without a kitchen because we ripped it out, it was just too much for me to continue making these videos. Looking back, I should have kept...
You had to cook! Oh my god, you had to cook outside because there was no kitchen. Oh my god.
The kitchen in place and do one room at a time, maybe? But then again, we planned it to be a rather quick renovation. You know, rip out the old kitchen, put in the new one, and go back to the regular daily life fairly soon. And
This is one of the things, right? You know, how is it? The man's best laid plans. You know, that's what you should never. It's never as easy as it
That
sounds.
is basically why I stopped making these videos. I wish I had continued, but overall it was just mentally too challenging for me.
Understandable,
And
yeah.
then again, thank you so much for your support. We have hit, I think, 1,400 subscribers on the channel, which is crazy for just 2 videos. So thank you for tuning in, and let's continue. So I had
Winter
the
came
roof
again.
replaced, much more work on my hands than I had thought. And then right before winter, the heating broke down. So I spent the entire winter here with no heating at all. And
No.
also no heating means no water. And the winter here last
My
year
God.
was quite rough, actually. In fact, it got to...
How do you live in a place with no water? What? It's again uninhabitable. You have to warm the snow so you can get water, but that's not a way to live for weeks at a time or even days at a
minus
time.
34 degrees up here. So I ended up buying a
Celsius?
lot of electric heaters, which wasn't really good for the electrical bill, but that was
my God.
basically the only thing that
I can't even imagine the electrical bill. Oh my God, this is insane.
that I could do. And yes, I do have an oven, but it is not the most efficient one. The way it is designed, it has to burn open, so you have to burn the fire inside, then open it up,
have no
then
idea
all
how
the heat
those ovens
escapes,
work.
then you have to close it again for a while, and so
No
on.
idea how that
So that
works.
didn't really work. It was
Okay.
okay with the electrical heaters in the bedroom. That worked,
you couldn't
but
sleep.
I couldn't really keep all the rooms in the house warm. So
It
I
would
had
be
2
insane.
of the radiators in the house break, which wasn't a big deal because I planned to replace them anyways. I
Okay,
wasn't
yes, they were
sure
old.
for a long time if the other pipes in the entire house have survived. Luckily they did. So at this point, my friend from Germany was back at home and I was working here by myself. Honestly, if it wasn't for my lovely neighbors, I would have probably
Wow.
went back to Germany, at least for a little while, because
Shout out to the neighbors.
if you don't have water, if you don't have heating under
How do
these
you live?
conditions, it is quite challenging. And as I said, no water means you cannot use the toilet, you cannot take a shower.
How do you live? You
And
can't.
that was really difficult. So my neighbors, they live like 100 meters down here in a cabin. They
Oh,
don't live
they're
here, but
close.
it's their holiday cabin, so they let me use
Oh my God,
their
thankfully.
bathroom. And also, with no water, you cannot cook.
You can't do
Oh, and
anything.
by the way, in winter, turned out I couldn't even get up here with my bus that you've seen in the previous 2 videos.
Oh, because
so
of the
I had to
snow?
buy another car with 4-wheel drive, which is another
Buy a car.
huge expense that wasn't
Oh my God.
planned for. The heating eventually got replaced, but that happened in spring. Then I
Oh
didn't
my
really
God,
need
so
it
long.
anymore. Well, at least now it's gonna be warm and I
Well, you're needed next year when the winter comes
will be
again.
prepared for this winter.
Correct.
So all in all, it is safe to say that it didn't go according to plan.
Hardly ever does.
I've planned a complete renovation update for this channel. So if you're new here and if you're interested in that, make sure to subscribe. Other than that, I just wanted to give you some insights, tell you what happened and why I disappeared for
Oh my
a
God.
year. Thank you very much for your patience with me, because I know it's been a long week, and I hope to see you soon.
Well, this was crazy. I think this is probably the worst case scenario for anyone trying to buy a house or thinking about buying a house in not even in Sweden, just I think a foreign country. You would assume, again, this is the worst case scenario. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong, which I think probably it's a good, I mean, probably you should think about this, I think, before buying a house. Obviously, you don't want things to go like that, but I think if I were in that position and I were buying a house in this foreign country, I would expect everything to go wrong. It's, yes, imagine everything, worst case scenario possible. I would plan for that. But I don't know, maybe I'm just very fatalistic about those kind of things. And I would sort of prepare myself mentally and, I don't know, financially for this, because I would have assumed, oh my God, everything will go wrong. Obviously, again, great news if it doesn't go wrong, but this is what they mean. I think there's a saying also, how else the saying goes, you have to be, I think, prepared for the worst, but expect the best. I think it's that, yeah, and you have to expect the best, but be prepared for the worst, just in case, just in case, which I think is a great piece of advice, because obviously, again, you're not expecting and you don't want things to go wrong, but just unless they do, you kind of want to be a little bit more prepared. Again, just in case, just putting it out there. So, because again, those kind of things can happen. It's like they say, sometimes you can plan and you can plan, and you can maybe expect, like he said, yes, I have it in my mind, this is what I'm going to be spending, this is how much it's going to take, and you have a ballpark in your mind. But again, you never know. It's Murphy's Law. Everything that can happen will happen. And yes, will your radiator, will your heating break down completely? Well, nobody knows, right? But it can happen. So I don't know. I think especially because it was, he mentions that it was a house that was, empty and no one lived there for about 3 years. I would expect the house to be in awful conditions just because, like he said, vermin gets in, the vermin. The rats came in, or maybe again, the mice, rats, I don't know, whatever it is, mice, rodents come in because, of course, if it's a house that's not, nobody lives there, animals will quickly, find their home there. And it's just because nature, right? I think it also tells you how, I think you can fight against nature to a certain extent, but I think if humans, you can tell, it's a house that it wasn't, you have neighbors, it wasn't just this house in the middle of nowhere, and you leave it alone for 2 or 3 years, oh my god, and the house, gets eaten by animals. It's how it goes. And mold also, it makes an appearance. Again, it's just so I think humans are the ones that they're trying to keep things out. You're trying to keep the nature out, but again, that tells you we are out for just a few years, and then nature will completely eat everything, basically, and that means plants, vegetation, as in mold, which is actually, again, it's nature, and animals and all of that. So I just think it's kind of crazy, the whole thing about them, him trying to think, planning for the best. I just think it's kind of like a crazy thing of again, you try to plan things, but then, things don't work, they don't go according to plan, and then, stuff like this happens. But it's really, thankfully he had a support group, he had a friend, and he had neighbors, which I think, like he said, I wouldn't have been able to go ahead in this journey if it hadn't been for my neighbors, because of course, how on earth do you live in a house with no water? Even the heating, I think I can maybe you can buy an electrical heater. Your bill's gonna go up. It's gonna be astronomical. But at least maybe, again, or you can maybe, I don't know, you have a fireplace maybe, or a stove, put some logs there, and I don't know, again, it's not a way to live long term, but maybe if you're in some sort of emergency, you can maybe, I don't know, if you're just one person, maybe you can just I'm doing this stove thing, and then I don't know, I bought a mattress, and I sleep in my living room next to the stove. I don't know, I think maybe there's ways that you can sort of mitigate this. But the no water situation, I think that's just no. I mean, we're not, again, we're animals, but we're domesticated animals. We can't live like this. I mean, maybe it's, for a few hours, maybe a day, but at long term, as in a few days, no, it's impossible. I'm not going to be able to cook. How am I, the bathroom? No, it's impossible. And again, there are some things that maybe during the winter you can, again, my main probably thing, if I were, survivalist mode, well, again, maybe you would melt the snow so you could get water. But again, how am I going to heat the water, melt the snow if I don't have heat? So it's just you have to live in a tent, basically. I'm living in my backyard in a tent, which is not really a thing because, again, it's going to be super cold. But you're sort of camping, basically every single week in your own backyard. This is not for the faint of heart. This is not for the weak. I'll say that. It would be one of my main things. I can't live like this. I would have thrown down my towel. I would have left because I can't really live like this. Although maybe again, because how do you do it's a conundrum, because how do you progress in your renovations if you're not, because you can say, well, it's okay, I'll leave and I'll because he also quite a huge mistake on his part. The whole thing of, you can't just sort of replace everything at the same time. You have to go room by room. I understand why he did it, because again, he was thinking, no, I'm not going to be, this is going to be a small thing. This is not going to take me months and months. So it's fine. Just rip up the whole floor. You can't do that, right? You have to go room by room. Just as you are, I know, when you're painting your house, you go room by room because again, it's a disaster zone, but it's just in one area of your house, and then you don't have to, everything's not a disaster, right? So it's not a disaster zone everywhere else. And that was, a huge mistake on his part, sadly. Now he knows, the good news, now he's super prepared for, again, although maybe I doubt that he'll ever do this again. It's no, if I ever buy another house in my life, it's going to be this house that I'm not going to need anything, I'm going to actually see it, and people are going to be living there, as in you have actual people that have lived there and not just people that, we're the owners, but we haven't been there in years. Because I'm not going through this twice. Although again, the good news is that you already have, I think, the equipment, the mental equipment, and you already know how the thing goes, so you'll know what to do, right? So, but I guess he's not going to do it again because he's not going to risk it. But again, it's the whole go room by room, do not do this, everything at the same time, which I think was a huge mistake. But my point is that, when you do that, maybe you go and you do this thing about, no, it's completely uninhabitable because I'm doing a bunch of renovations. And you don't have heating, you don't have water. You would go, maybe I think I would just go and stay at a nearby hotel or at a nearby Airbnb. I mean, it's probably going to be more expensive, obviously, because, or unless you're already planning ahead in your budget. But I'm going to be staying I'm not going to be staying here while they do all those things. However, you have to be on top of things, because if you go and there's a place that's a little bit more isolated, then how am I going to go? I can't go every single day there. So I can't really make any I can advance if I'm not there. Because I would assume he's not doing it. You maybe help, and there are some things that you do yourself. But there are some other things that I would think you have to get a professional in order for people to fix this. For instance, I know the roof needs replacement. I mean, you would have to get someone to do this for you. And even the radiators and the whole pump situation, I would assume you also need people to do this for you, because it's not unless you have some sort of experience with it. I wouldn't risk it, because it's oh my god, what if I do something wrong? Maybe, and I'm not going to do a good job at this. But that's my point. Maybe hire a professional, and that's going to last you, for a couple of years or a few years, forever. I know how long those things need replacing. But again, it's not going to be yourself doing a poor job and then having this replaced in 6 months. So again, it's so many things that oh my god, that could have gone wrong, and they did went wrong. But again, good news, you're already prepared. I think you can look at these videos and himself as well. Again, well, now what good, in one sense, I think, again, for you, the audience seeing this, it's more what not to do when you're buying a house, even though obviously it goes for buying a house even in where you live, right? But I think it goes extra if you're buying a house in a place, in a foreign country. What he said, especially about, you maybe ask around, because apparently the protocol was not, the best. He also obviously mentioned, what went into it, but apparently it wasn't the right way to do it. So maybe again, because why would you know, right? It's another country. I don't know how things work over there. So of course you're not aware of it. That's what you would probably, I don't know, get a lawyer, ask people. I don't know what you would do, but maybe again, get a second opinion, I don't know, go into, again, the equivalent was a Zillow or whatever. But again, all of those things. But I think in his perspective, I'm glad that he didn't give up, because again, the house is actually beautiful. I think, and the place, the area, the surrounding area, it looks gorgeous. I think it's beautiful. It sort of looks, from the outside, looks like a dream, and then it looks perfect. It's then when he's telling the story that's, oh my god, the nightmares that have occurred in this house, even though I'm with my whole experience, because from the outside, it looks so perfect. Maybe it's a metaphor for how, I don't know, social media or whatever, sometimes you look at things and they're so pretty and they look so perfect, and all the situation looks perfect from the outside, but it's only when you actually sort of go into it and you go inside of it, again, metaphorically speaking, that you actually get to see how all the reality wasn't all all beautiful and all roses, and again, it's only when you actually get to see it. So again, it's maybe a good metaphor, although again, for him, it's probably good to know. Now you know what not to do. What good does it make me? nothing, right? It's, how is it, experiences, experience is like a chocolate bodyguard, what does it make me, well, good, it's fine, it's there, but it already happened. So again, it's not gonna be useful to me, but maybe it will help someone else. But yeah, I'm happy that he stuck with it. Shout out to the neighbors. Hopefully he gives them a huge present because, oh my God, letting the neighbors, use, well, like you would do that. I think if you were the neighbor, you would obviously help them, but I guess not everyone, is that sort of gracious. But again, grateful for the neighbors, and grateful that he didn't sold this, because I think it has amazing potential, and now I want to see how the whole thing turned around, because again, it has great potential. Yes, it was things that could go wrong, but it wasn't this out of field situation that happened, as in destroy the house, start over. No, the whole process makes it seem like that, but the actual house itself, it looks beautiful, and the place itself, beautiful. I also want to know how much did the house cost, because he was saying, yes, of course, I would probably be able to sort of negotiate this, because I had to do a lot of renovations and stuff. But I want to know how much it costs, and and how does it compare to other houses in Sweden? Because wasn't that expensive? I don't know. I'm dying to know. But that was it for today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.